Mass atrocity crimes have evolved over time in terms of our understandings to include genocide, war crimes, crimes against humanity, and ethnic cleansing. So it's a whole cluster of serious human rights violations. When we think about prevention in modern kind of research and also practice, we tend to divide prevention into three areas. So one area is what we refer to as structural prevention, which deals with deep root causes of mass atrocities. And structural prevention can include, for instance, governance issues, addressing problems of rule of law, of the way political resources are distributed among groups, of dealing with political contestation in a peaceful way. We also deal with economic dimensions of prevention, of structural prevention, addressing inequality, addressing problems of poverty, and also so-called horizontal inequalities, that is inequalities between different groups. We also have to deal with issues of social dimensions of prevention. And that deals more than anything else fostering pro-social norms of behavior. Those norms of behavior of respect and tolerance towards others really have to be rooted in the cultural norms and practices of that society. It can't be abstract, basically. And then finally, I'd say that another important dimension of structural prevention is security reform. So ensuring that the security forces themselves are not experiencing or not engaging in violence against certain populations, that they're actually under civilian control. So we have structural prevention that has all those dimensions. We have what is sometimes referred to as operational prevention or kind of short-term prevention, and that really is more about focusing on processes of escalation of violence. So it's there where we're thinking, for instance, about using diplomatic pressure on leaders who might be engaging in violence, drawing attention to monitoring, focusing on high-risk cases. We also think about issues, for instance, of how to bring together contending leaders to negotiate and transform their conflicts. But in certain cases, when the violence becomes more profound, it might include also thinking about how to protect civilians in case the violence starts breaking down. And that might include the use of peacekeeping forces. So there's a whole array of possible operational prevention tools that might be available. And then lastly, there's an area that we refer to as prevention, but it's really about non-repetition of crimes. So one can think of, for instance, transitional justice, post-atrocity, the use of reparations, of truth commissions, of war crimes tribunals, but also the reform of the security forces and the reform of the legal system. So there are a whole set of tools. If you think of it in terms chronologically of these different dimensions, there are a whole set of tools that are available, and the actual use of tools depends on the specific cases. We know that these tools are very valuable. What we don't always know is whether they always reinforce one another in terms of prevention, or they might draw in opposite directions. For instance, one could imagine some tools that encourage conflict resolution between leaders, but in order to do that, by passing an amnesty, you deny the rights of victims. So it can be very, very tricky.